I have to admit, I was initially skeptical with the first reveal of Nintendo Labo back in January. I wasn't too thrilled to learn that significant development time and resources went into a project that only would be interesting to a relatively small demographic of Nintendo fans. I mean, not a small demographic, but not exactly the Switch's target audience, considering the marketing up to this point. Even though part of my skepticism was due to the fact that we were expecting a full direct at the time and were shortchanged with this announcement, I still didn't really see the appeal in this project even after setting aside my biases and looking at Nintendo Labo objectively. Part of the reason I didn't like Labo itself was because the games looked too shallow from what we saw in that trailer. I knew that we would see more of these games in the future, but I couldn't really imagine how far they could take these simple concepts like fishing and racing and expand on them, given they're confined to the individual Toy-Cons. It also didn't help that the variety kit was $70 and the robot itself was $80. However, last week Nintendo came out with a couple of new trailers that showed off more specifics of what was in each game and how the Toy-Cons played a significant role. If you haven't seen those videos yet, I'll link them in the description if you want an in-depth look of Labo's functionality. The bottom line is that I was blown away by all the stuff we saw from these trailers. Like, absolutely taken by surprise. I don't want to get ahead of myself here, so let's just start with the robot kit. Of the two that have been announced, this one I think is the less interesting. That's not to say it isn't cool, I mean it looks incredibly fun. Just for the money, I think the variety kit pulls me in a little bit more. But if I ignore the price tag, the robot is just sick. I think it would be amazing even if the only mode was the one where you can destroy a town by throwing fireballs, turning into tanks, flying, going to first person, etc. But there's more, including a bunch of levels with different challenges, a delightfully immersive customization system, and apparently a way to make your own sounds by putting the Switch into the backpack. It's also really impressive to me that the robot operates with only 2 Joy-Cons. When I first saw them show it off last month, I assumed it would be really expensive and require multiple pairs of Joy-Cons, which most people don't have. Somehow Nintendo found a way to use the IR sensor on the right Joy-Con to track all of the robot's movements, and use the left Joy-Con to track the visor movements. However, this technically does mean that the punches and stomps in the game won't be as accurate just because it can only sense the depth of a punch and not its direction. Either way though, it's still super cool that you don't need to buy an extra pair of Joy-Cons to use it. It just seems to be a really fun kit all around. Next is the variety kit, which honestly is a lot more value to me. There are 5 unique and interesting Toy-Cons that all bring something cool to the table. First are the RC cars, and through their easy build process and use of 2 Joy-Cons, they bring the most immediate joy. Oh, I get it now. Joy-Cons. Anyway, these little cars look kind of fun and should keep younger ones occupied even though they don't go very fast, due to their, well, I guess colorability. There are also 2 of them so that siblings can design their own car, which is genius on Nintendo's part. I'm also intrigued by how the IR sensor will be used for its autopilot feature. Moving on is the fishing rod, which provides a lot more depth than I originally thought. Get it? It's a fishing joke. This Toy-Con actually seems to be pretty fun, especially when I learned all the different environments one can fish in, and that when a fish bites, the Joy-Con rumbles, letting you know. But there's still that lingering question of what will happen if a kid in excitement yanks the Joy-Con up and the Switch along with it, at which point Newton's laws kick in and the console comes crashing back down to earth with great force and, well, damages the system. I would imagine Nintendo thought of this and maybe made the string come out if pulled on too hard, but we'll just have to see. Either way, this game looks pretty neato, and I love the fact that you can see all the fish you've caught and make your own in the aquarium. Up next is the Toy-Con house. I've heard a lot of people say that this one looked the least interesting, and while I can't necessarily disagree, I still loved some of the concepts behind it. I think the whole idea of putting in different pieces and turning them or pushing them to interact with the creature is something I would have been into as a kid. My favorite gadget that we saw them put on the house was the one that causes a portal which sucks everything in. There was like a blue string attaching the ends of the portal, and it seemed like the creature was going through it. I was still pretty impressed with this one, even if it's on the less interesting side of things. The motorbike was probably the coolest for one reason in particular. The track builder. It's just such a classic, brilliant Nintendo move to use the Joy-Con to draw a path in midair and create terrain. It seems so much easier for kids than anything that could have been done via Labo's internal software. It's also slightly creepy but really cool that the IR sensor can scan in different gestures and form landmasses. I just love this whole system and can imagine a ton of kids spending hours trying to perfect their own courses. Finally is the piano, which is also more impressive than I initially thought. It's clear Nintendo put in extra effort not to make these Toy-Cons seem like just another garbage kid's toy. This piano has a bunch of cool features that I can't do justice just talking about, so go watch that video if you haven't already. There are like different filters and recordings and even a conductor mode. There's even a way to cut your own shapes and have that affect the sound in some way. The piano is just a lot cooler than I thought, and I hope we find out more details in the future. So overall, I'm very impressed with Nintendo Labo. All the things I mentioned in this video are just the elements of its software, which doesn't even include the playtime to build and figure out how it works. I think the price tag, at least on the variety kit, is well worth it. I actually pre-ordered the variety kit for my niece and nephew as it seems perfect for them, and I'm really excited to help them build it and find out how interesting it is to kids. It comes out on April 20th, and it should be arriving around then as well, so once I get time to see what they think, I'll report back on whether or not Labo was successful for my family. Let me know what you think of Labo in the comments. Do you have young kids in the family who would like it, or do you still think it's overpriced? I know that at least for me, Labo seems promising, and admittedly I can't wait to play some of the games myself. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.